Now we come to the most important factor that regulates the consumer behavior. A consumer cannot go out of this and buy, even if he has psychological, social and personal factors favoring. That is the cultural factors. As we have seen in the example that you have to buy for your brother or sister's wedding, you cannot go step out of the culture. What is prescribed, how a wedding should happen, the rules, regulation, norms, rituals, you have to buy accordingly. Otherwise, the entire marriage process can stop. That is the risk. Or the person can be banished, become a persona non grata. So, nobody will take the risk of going beyond the culture. Hence, that is the maximum influencing factor on consumer behavior. Say for example, in the Middle East, there are many customers who would like to buy a Western clothing, but many women prefer, they have a lot of money, they can afford, age is there, everything, all resources are there, but still they cannot buy because the culture which restricts their buying behavior. Hence, what is culture? Let us start with the first thing called culture. Culture is the sum total of learned beliefs, values and customs that serve to regulate the consumer behavior of members of particular society. It is a total of sum of beliefs, it is learned. Even in attitude we have seen the beliefs. The beliefs are learned from the culture, and the values. The culture also teaches you values and customs. For the marriage or any other function, what customs are to be followed. For each of the stage of the life, there are certain customs, that are rituals that are to be followed. These are to regulate. That is the reason why nobody can go beyond the culture. This serves beliefs, values, customs, rituals to serve the consumer behavior of the members of a particular society. Hence the importance of culture. But whatever the culture is learnt, and he learns from the beliefs and values and customs, rituals to regulate his behavior. That is what is the culture. Now, why the culture is there? Culture is there, it offers order in the society. Because of culture, there is an order, and it gives also a direction as to how to go about various activities in life, and it guides, it orders, it gives you direction, and it guides you in all phases of human problem solving. When to eat, where to eat, what to eat for each meal, what to serve guests at a dinner, at a picnic, at a wedding, what to wear, when to wear, what to wear, and even how to wear. The culture gives direction and also guidance. And it also tells that what are the occasions in which what you have to wear, even occasional and rituals, what you should be wearing, the culture tells you. Accordingly, only a consumer would go for buying. So, we have to understand that the culture would give direction and guidance in the life. Then how we have seen a culture is learned, how a consumer learns. There are three ways of learning. One is formal learning, through formally taught by the parents at a normative level about the culture, he learns. Informal learning, by looking at various neighbors or the society or through the advertisements also. As we see in many advertisements, the daughter is gifted in the wedding, or how a wedding has to be performed, the barat and other things, the procession that. So, a consumer learns informally by observing, looking at various mediums and also advertisements, he learns. The technical learning, this is what is taught in the classrooms and very systematically. So, when the culture is learnt, as we have seen, he may learn formally, he may learn informally, or he may learn technically, but whatever, during the process he will learn what are the possessions the culture permits, what are the goods that you have to possess. And when exchanging what are the goods you have to give as part of the rituals. And as part of the grooming, what are the things that you have to follow? And as part of the divestment rituals, what is to be used? So, a consumer learns through the culture all these. Now, coming to the practical issues of business, there are two kinds of learning, that is enculturation and acculturation. Learning one's own culture is one aspect. Learning a foreign culture is another. That is the reason why many of the products, apparel and accessories that are developed in the Western countries slowly come and a culture changes. One of the characteristics of culture is culture changes, but slowly through the learning of a foreign culture or Western. So, also the Westerners learn the Eastern culture. So, when they learn the foreign culture, the clothing is part of the culture. So, that is the reason why the culture also shares. It shares rituals, it shares practices, it shares the products, it language, behavior, everything. It shares and it is dynamic. So, there are language and symbols that are part of the culture, which we have to understand the culture. So, this function is particularly important for global marketing companies or the international marketing companies. We have to be very careful because that is part of the culture. The language and the symbols. There are many times certain symbols are offensive. What is accepted in one culture is offensive in other cultures. The rituals are also part of the culture. The gift giving, thanksgiving and marriage, these are all various rituals are part of those functions, and we cannot violate You have to just follow what is prescribed by the culture. So, understanding the culture and making best use of that is what a marketer has to do if he wants to be successful. When the present Unilever, when they way back wanted to launch worldwide, the washing powder is what is used for cleaning of the clothes. But when it came to South Asia and particularly India, there is a peculiar phenomena how they clean the fabric, because as many of you know, India is one of the pioneers in the cotton fabric. Way back in Indus Valley civilization they found the fabric, but the fabric is a very rough fabric. So, in order to cleanse that, there is a hard way of cleaning the fabric by hitting hardly onto the stone, or taking a stone to remove the dirt or stains is what is practiced here. So, this is what is being continued for washing of the clothes. But when Unilever wanted to introduce the washing powder, there were no takers. So, they had to come out with the bar cake soap, which uses very hard way of cleaning the stains. So, many of these kind of instances would suggest that you have to go by the culture. If you go against, your product itself may not be taken by the consumers. Hence, the need for understanding the culture. The next most important cultural factor is subculture. Whether we like it or not, we are all part of a subculture. Now, what is a subculture? Let us first define, understand, and then we will discuss about the uniqueness of subcultures. It is a distinct cultural group that exists as an identifiable segment within a larger and a more complex society. So, a subculture is also part of the subculture, it is a cultural group, but it is an identifiable segment within a larger or more complex societies. Now, as in the example which we had seen of the marriage, though we are all part of a big country, but still everybody who is belong to a particular state want to follow the rituals and norms of that state or that religion. Hence, though at a larger context we are part of a culture, but still we follow the norms of that subculture within that culture. So, there are many religious subcultures within a big country like India. We have many religions, and even in Western countries also there are many religions, even within US and Europe. They could be Catholics, Protestants, the Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs. So, there are so many religions as part of the subculture, and each religion prescribes its own code of conduct. The clothing, suppose for a same wedding, if it is a Christian wedding, the attire that is required is different when compared to the Hindu wedding. And even in terms of the colors, certain multinational companies has come out with a green color toothpaste or products which would appeal to a particular religion. So, the marketing strategies, many companies would tailor make to cater to the subcultural requirements, the products, brands, the entire marketing strategy in terms of the 4 P's would be altered based on the subculture. Now, let us further understand the other subcultures. Even the age is a subculture. Whenever we discuss with the present generation youth, they say, we belong to a different generation. You belong to a different generation. So, your culture and our culture are different. They differentiate in terms of the culture because of the age. Though this is a Western concept, but still there are, based on the age, the society is divided into Gen X market, Gen Y market, the senior markets, baby boomer market, etc. So, the behavior of these subcultures would be different. Hence, the way you deal, because their consumer behavior would be different, hence the way you deal with them through your strategies would be different. Say for example, the baby boomer markets. These are the people who are born after the Second World War. So, that means those who are born between 46 and 64 are baby boomers, because of the loss of the population because of the wars, and also there are a lot of scarcities that the countries underwent. Suddenly the economies started booming and they said, produce as many as, and they were liberalized, from the scarcity there were more liberations that were granted for this segment. Now, those people have become old, but still they are called as baby boomers. So, the products and the way of living and taste and preference of baby boomers and Gen Y is definitely different. Hence, the marketers in the Western countries, the way they deal with baby boomers and Gen Y would be entirely different. So, it is based on the subcultures. Then another subculture could be sex. The men behave differently and the women behave differently. They say even, men are from Mars. So, they behave differently. It is a subculture. So, the products, the consumer behavior, the brands, the usage rate, everything will change as per the sex. So, more sophistication, tender products or even colors are required by women when compared to men. Women require more sophisticated and the different colors which suits their personalities. So, sex as a subculture, even we have seen the products are classified as masculine and feminine based on these traits. So, finally, using the subculture, marketers have to devise the strategies. There are some hotels in the very traditional 5-star hotel groups which used to tell earlier that you cannot wear chappal or barefoot, you cannot enter into their hotels. But they had to change their strategies, because in some of the subcultures, even the richest of the richest will come either barefoot or wearing the chappal to any place, and they will be dressed very simply depending upon the local environment. So, the companies had to change their strategies which they followed elsewhere to suit that subculture. So, the subcultures would help the marketers in segmenting the market and adapting the marketing mix to suit subcultures' needs, and use ethnic media to reach ratio ethnic subcultures, and moreover you can incorporate the members of subcultures even in the advertisements, particularly for those international marketers, global marketers. They should be very careful when they are dealing with different subcultures. As we have seen, even the language, symbols, rituals, what they show could offend, or sometimes if you make use of positively, it will boost the sales. Hence, the understanding of culture and subculture is the utmost requirement for a marketer to succeed. The next major part of the culture is social class. It is the orderly division of the society using various parameters. It could be based on the income or the occupation or the assets or the work or the place of residence or dwelling. All these factors, whatever, if it helps in the orderly division of the societies, which is a natural phenomena in all cultures, that is what is social culture. Though there are many ways of classifying, the major thing, the practical application by many societies is in terms of the occupation or the dwelling, or the major aspect is based on the income. The society is broadly divided earlier into haves and have-nots. But this will not give solutions to the marketers. So, the marketers later have started dividing the society for their purpose into three. As we know, this is the lower class, middle class and upper class, like three berths in the train. There is lower class, middle class and upper class. This is the broad classification. So, every class has its own behavior. As we have seen again in the example of wedding, where the wedding is to be performed will be normally thought by the social class based on where he or she is. Suppose if the person is from a very upper class, rich class, they will think of performing the same wedding in a 5-star hotel or at a big luxurious venues, and the wedding will be very pompous. This is how the upper class does weddings. If it is a middle class, they may not be as pompous or luxurious as a social class, but they will try to do it very well by hiring a venue and spending again good amount of money. The lower class normally would not be spending that much. It may not be as pompous as both the social class weddings. They may do it in their houses or sometimes even on the roads we will see many times weddings happening. So, it is perfectly acceptable in that social class. So, the behaviors consumers exhibit will broadly confine to the social class to which they belong to. But the marketers, because there is so much of income distribution that is there, right from person, if you go by the minimum wages, a person may be getting around 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 per month. From that to there are some who would earn crores per month as a salary, 1 crore. So, the distribution is huge. So, the economists have started further dividing the class into the lower class who get less than even the minimum wages that are prescribed, very poor, and this is the lower class, and there is an upper lower class who would be slightly getting more than the lower class. Then the middle class also has lower middle class and there will be upper middle class. Then in terms of the upper class, creamy, upper, the lower upper. So, these are further classifications based on the economic situation. So, these three classes are also not sufficient because the income distribution is such that it needs further classification to identify the segments and targeting. The classes have been further divided into lower class, upper lower, lower middle class, upper middle class, lower upper class and upper, or these are called as creamy layers. Now, with the entry of the luxury brands, they are looking for segments which they can cater to. So, naturally, since the concept of luxury is from European, which belongs to the upper class, and they exhibit a pattern or certain behaviors based on the class, because European society is class dependent. The same concept here is also applied. So, they want to target the upper or creamy layer, how many are there in India, so that they can target. So, there is a survey done which gives them as 0.1 million to 0.3 million people, that is 1 lakh to 3 lakh Indian customers are in this range who can afford to buy, and they will buy because they want to show off or they want to live the life of the upper class. They want to possess good brands, they want to wear expensive clothing, they want to live in luxury houses, villas, they want to live at very rich areas, they want to buy expensive cars, they want to eat in an expensive places. So, all the behaviors which an upper class or creamy class exhibits or the consumer behaviors that exhibited by this segment. So, the brands want to target them. So, they have done a study and they found that the Indian market is also equally lucrative because they have such class here. But as we were discussing, the social class need not be always divided only based on income. Ideally, it should be other factors which also should be included, like the occupation, profession, education, dwelling, rural, urban, all those factors can be considered while classifying. So, there is a classification done by the governments as SEC, that is socio-economic classification, based on the factors which we discussed now. So, there are SEC A class, SEC B segments, SEC C, SEC D. So, these are further classifications that are possible in the social class. Whatever, every class has its own behavior, and the marketers have to understand that and identify which segment to deal, and accordingly they have to understand their behavior. So, this is what about the social class. So, all the factors, the culture, subculture and social class are part of the cultural factors in the consumer behavior. So, in order to understand the consumer behavior, we have understood the psychological factors, the personal factors, the social factors and the cultural factors. So, using all these factors, we are able to understand why and how a consumer behaves, so that we can tailor make our strategies accordingly. So, these factors will also help a market researcher in understanding the consumer behavior by doing a consumer research. Then only the marketer will be successful in totality. Now, let us discuss the next topic, the decision making, how a consumer makes the decision. Having understood the factors that affect the consumer behavior, many times the marketers would be wondering, even though they have made lot of efforts, spent lot of money on advertising, brand building and marketing, still the consumer don't select their product or brand. They are perplexed how and why consumer has or has not taken a decision toward their brand or toward their product. So, even the marketers must understand how a consumer takes a decision before they go for strategizing. Now, what is the decision? Now, let us understand what is the decision, so that we can arrive at the strategies accordingly. The decision happens only when there are alternatives available. If I have only one thing in front of me, I have to take this, I will take this, I have no other option, or I need not have to take, I may not take. But there is no choice, so there is no decision making normally. So, the selection of an option from two or more alternatives, or other words, is to make a decision. So, when I want to select one among two or more alternatives, that is what is decision making. So, the choice of alternatives must be available, and we know that in the market for the consumer, so many choices are available. So, he has to take a decision which one to buy, and how he does is what is to be understood. So, a consumer has resources like time, money, effort, and how he want to spend his resources also is a decision a consumer takes. So, we have to understand the decision making process. Now, for a consumer, when we look at the decision making, he may not view the decision making as a marketer views. There are consumers who view it as a great economic activity, because he is so concerned about the purchase, he will go for extensive search. He will do all the work in the world to collect information, to make a perfect decision, or what he calls as a rational decision. So, he collects all the information, he ranks all the products, brands on various attributes, and he processes it, spending lot of time, money and effort, and finally he selects one. That is what is called as the economic view. But we all know that it is an unrealistic approach. In this imperfect world, the consumer is not able to maximize decision in terms of economic considerations. So, though many of us view this as not possible, but some of the consumers do consider this as a great activity where they have to spend considerable time, money, effort, and should have all the alternatives before they decide what to select. So, the consumer in this case should be aware of all the available products, he should rank all the benefits, and he should be able to identify the best alternative in this model. The next is passive. There are many consumers who do not view the decision as a great activity. They just look at the ads or the information given by various marketers or salesmen in the store, and they make their decision accordingly. There are some consumers who would view. So, this model says that the consumers would be driven by the advertisements and the salesmen, and they are not much bothered in taking decision making. Whatever is presented, they think that is correct and they go by that. Hence, the requirement of salesmen, particularly with the low involvement and passive decision makers. So, this model is opposite to the economic model, and here the consumer is viewed as submissive to self-serving interest and the marketing effort. Hence, the company should take extensive marketing and advertising efforts. The consumers are considered as impulsive and irrational in terms of purchases. The consumer was subscribed to the hard driving super salesman of old era, who were trained to regard consumer as an object of manipulation. And the advertisers, while giving advertisement, should not miss the principles of IDA. They should get the attention, they should create interest, they should create the desire, and which automatically will lead to action, that is purchase. So, the effort of advertisers is to follow the IDA model in the passive view. So, the model deals particularly with people who are having less resources in terms of education, or who are from the rural areas, etc., with low income and resources. The next view is called as the cognitive view. In the modern context of information sources, channels, and almost all the consumers are exposed to the various media that is available, and the education that comes from various sources, the consumer is not normally a passive one. He is a thinking problem solver man, and he will try to get information whatever that can come and process with his limited processing abilities and within the possible time and constraints, but he will try to take a decision based on the information. Because he do not buy a product as a product, he is a thinking problem solver by considering various options. So, the consumer seek the information about the particular brand or retail outlet, may also use preferences formation strategy, and consumers seek sufficient information for satisfactory decision. Here he do not look at rational decision, normally he will look for satisficing, that is satisfactory and sufficient decision. They follow certain shortcut decision rules called as heuristics to ease the decision making process. So, this captures the essence of well educated and who seek information. So, the high end products or technologically relevant products has to look at this view, and they have to give sufficient information so as to facilitate the decision making, because they are mostly cognitive view and problem solvers. So, the next view is man by human, as a human being, is consisting of bundles of feelings. So, the emotional quotient cannot be ignored. Many times the consumers take decisions based on emotions and impulsive. And this is a model which suggests that consumers take decisions based on impulsive and emotions. The consumer likely to associate themselves many times with deep feelings. He cannot, as we said, he is a social animal, feelings are part of, or emotions, joy, fear, hope, love, sexuality, fantasy, even little magic, ethnocentrism. In many cases, he will be driven by these emotions. So, he will less emphasize on purchase information rather on current mood and feeling. The emphasis on just go for it, because to fulfill and satisfy certain emotional requirements. The consumer mood is also important for decision making, which states that the feeling state and state of mind is also equally important while taking a decision. That is why many retailers would create such good ambience which would elate the mood of the consumers, so that the decision making is easy and it is impulsive. Because it impacts when consumers shop, where they shop, some retail creates the mood for the shopper. So, the various views talk about how consumers themselves view the decision making and go by their views, and how much they participate, how quickly they take decision, all depends on how the consumers view the decision making as a process. Now, let us understand a major model that will help us even further understand how a consumer actually takes a decision. This is called as input process output model. This is input process output model. This is the practical way, this is a systems view about how consumer takes a decision. So, in order to take the consumer decision, first there has to be inputs. A consumer do not know anything about what products are available, what brands are available. It is the effort normally by the marketers, by telling through advertisements or various modes of communication, that there is a product, there is a brand from him available, at what price and at what places they are available, and also the promotions. This input has to be given by the marketers to the consumer. That will go as an input to the consumer. So, do not blame if the consumer do not consider while taking decision your product or brand if he does not know. So, a marketer, whether he likes it or not, has to spend money in or various other strategies, so that the consumer is aware, and when he is taking decision, that input is there already in him. Apart from that, as we discussed earlier, the family, the informal sources, the word of mouth, other non-commercial sources, the social classes behavior, the subculture and culture tells what to buy, what not to buy, what product to consider, what not products to consider, and which is to be considered when, are all there as an input for him. So, this model says that the marketer should give information and the consumer would take further inputs from the socio-cultural environment, family, informal sources and other non-commercial sources. He do not depend only on the commercial sources, many times he will take inputs from non-commercial sources, and social classes and subculture and culture. Today the non-commercial sources could be the networking sites from Facebook or from various blogs or various sources he would try to take information. So, once that information comes into, then the mind actually processes inside. So, how it processes? The first thing that is required for the decision to take in the process, you need recognition. Nobody, as we know, buys anything without a need. So, in the process the mind would see, do I need this? If so, what is the need? Is it physiological or safety or social esteem or what need? So, the mind would start the process, what kind of need. Then there is a search that is called pre-purchase search for the information and various options that are available. Once that information about the products, brands, features, what competitors are offering, all that is collected, it would be evaluated. That is evaluation of alternatives. So, the process would consider the various options that are available in terms of evaluation. And when evaluating, the psychological factors which we have discussed in consumer behavior would give inputs. In terms of the motivation, I do not feel like, though there is a need, I do not feel like, oh, or I, passive mode we can, what is there, let me buy what is shown in the television or advertisement or what is presented by the salesman. So, the process would be limited based on the motivation, perception. While selecting the alternatives, we may go that, okay, let us go by the high price, high quality, or this brand is good, this brand Levi's, so the products, all Levi's products are good. So, we may have the perception which we understood, or the learning. What we have learned that this particular store is good, this particular brand is good, or somebody has told that this is not good or this would give good mileage, whatever our learning is, we will try to put during the process. And what type of personality? If I am high cognition personality, I will ask for more information. If I am visualizer, I will ask for more advertisements. So, whatever is my personality type, I would try to apply. If I am innovative, I will try to look for brands and products which are innovative. Then attitude. I have negative attitude towards Chinese products and brands, so I do not consider those, or my attitude towards Indian brands is good, so let us consider only Indian brands. So, all these during the process, the need recognition, there is a pre-purchase search, evaluation of alternatives coupled with the consumer behavior, psychological factors like motivation, perception, learning, personality and attitude would get into the process. Then what? There is another dimension that many would ask. Suppose while considering where the past experience factors in. Though while processing, I might be processing, but suddenly the experience of mine or somebody also I might ask. If I am not familiar with the car, I will ask. If I am the first time buyer, I will ask somebody else experience or my previous experience itself. It might come from outside or as an output next time when I am buying. So, the experience also has a role to play. So, after all these process, the consumer will decide that let us go for trial, purchase in terms of let us go for trial, and if he is happy he may repeat purchase, and even after purchase he does not stop. Normally the consumer and his behavior do not stop. There will be post purchase evaluation, how it is faring, what problems it is giving, how the service is, whether the servicemen have attended on time, all these would be evaluated. Because next time the same thing can go as an experience and can give inputs to the process. So, this is how the consumer takes decision using input process output model. So, a marketer who understands this would ensure that his brand or product is there in the input consideration, while processing all the information that is required would be provided by the brands, and ensure through the management of the consumer behavior factors, so that the consumer has a favorable perception and he learns all good things about the brand and his attitude is made as positive, so that it will aid in purchase or trial and it is consumed by the consumer. So, this is how the decision making would help a marketer in marketing his products and brands better and be successful in the marketplace.